Hello and welcome back to Snapping Towels. This is episode 16, and I am Cam Williams alongside my partner, as always, Kyle Foote. Kyle, quite the first round.
We knew there was going to be an upset in there, so I'm not too surprised. We just didn't know where it was going to be necessarily. There's a lot of teams that could have poked at that massive first round upset, but we saw it in the last game of the first round.
Yeah, kind of saved best for last. There were definitely some good games sprinkled in there. A few blowouts. Some games that honestly weren't that entertaining to watch, frankly. And I'm sure those games gave Notre Dame and Duke fans nightmares, considering they are on the outside looking in. I think it's safe to say that the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame would not have lost by 10 plus goals to Rutgers. I think that Rutgers Notre Dame game would have been quite a show. But as we discussed last week, we are where we are. Pretty crazy weekend. You talk about upsets. Richmond almost pulled one off in Philly. Quite the game from our Penn Quakers.
Slugfest in Philly. That was one of the earlier games. Yeah, I mean, it was back and forth. It took some insane plays from Penn to kind of hold their lead, as well as our boy Dalton Young for the Spiders kind of doing his thing, getting them on the board. So I just thought it was a back and forth. That was one of the ones I thought could have been the upset. The other one was St. Joe's. There's three teams. There's Richmond, St. Joe's, and I really didn't think Delaware was going to be the upset. I thought it was going to be either Richmond or St. Joe's. So kudos to Penn for pulling it through. And there's no easy wins in the tournament.
No easy wins in May. That's for damn sure. Two friends of the pod going at it in this game. Sam Hanley, the unanimous Ivy League Player of the Year, in my opinion, should be the favorite for the Tewaaraton. He is a finalist. I think the next 2 or 3 weeks will really decide that fate for Sam Hanley. Dalton Young, of course, our guy, registers a hat trick. That kid's all over the place. Excited to see him back on the field next year. He rides with the best of them, makes a lot of plays on loose balls. Really, really like Dalton Young's game. But another 1-goal win, hanging on by a thread. The Penn Quakers, insane stat was thrown out this past weekend. The Ivy League is 13-1 this year in 1-goal non-conference games. That's a crazy long stat, but 13-1 in non-conference 1-goal games. That's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, it would have been an early exit for the Quakers if Ben Smith didn't have the game of his young career, recording 5 goals. BL product. I got a couple calls from some boys Latin faithfuls saying it's all they do down there is produce, and which was pretty funny. But I thought his handles and his goals were insane, and to come in as a 4th string attackman, sometimes.
Is he a 4th or 5th attackman at the beginning of beginning of the year?
When Hanley was down playing attack, he was the 5 slot. So to come in and have a freshman who hasn't seen many runs at attack come in and get 5 was ridiculous. Notably, my favorite was the ground ball on the sideline with Gregar, who casually just outruns this pull. Pull went over the head, which is just a big no-no, up by the 50, but it gave Gregar this lane, and Ben Smith just slid inside right on top of the crease with his stick where no one could see it, and Gregar just throws him this underhand slinger right to his
I didn't know Gregar had that.
It was the most casual dime, and no one really said anything about it. They're like talking about like the trust. Like, I'm like, the trust, like to throw that pass and handle it in that situation. Granted, sometimes you see it happen and you see like a tip in and it kind of like a bloof goal, but yeah, that handle and finish. The goalie made it a little easier by charging him when he just handled it. So he had an open cage, but to handle that pass in a huge game like that is incredible. It shows you what kind of career Ben Smith's gonna have.
to throw that pass in a huge game. Shows you the cojones that Gregar has on him. Also, his game tying goal. I mean, I was honestly, the handle he made, like Sam Hanley threw him a terrible pass. Talk about another casual skip. Sam Hanley is no stranger to the risky skip, which, I love. He'll rifle it from anywhere to anyone. But, under a minute to play, he throws an absolute dirt ball to
Gregar.
No, not to Gregar, to Ben Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Smith essentially has to pick up a ground ball that's traveling 60 miles an hour, picks it up, no problem, buries it low to low. Handling through this thing through like 5 sticks.
Yeah.
It's going on a downward trajectory. This kid makes a snag off the ground
submarine.
and buries it. It was absurd. Absolute vacuum.
Ball.
So just an insane day from Ben Smith,
Dude, yeah.
first NCAA tournament game to bury 5 goals on 9 shots. The kid's white hot, 5-1 for the day.
Yeah.
Sam Hanley looked unbelievable, dodging out of the box. I mean, he always looks
that
great.
Could have gone too.
Yep.
Couple just missed. Definitely had something to do with the conditions. And the goalie that Penn had, Birkinshaw
had a nice day.
He's hot.
He's hot, and that's huge for Penn right now.
Huge for Penn.
During this game, I thought Jules Hendenberg did an excellent job.
Yeah, me too. Like texting about that.
Yeah, I think he definitely has room to grow as a commentator, but I was extremely impressed with his call, and he said something about Sam Hanley. He was going off on Sam Hanley, and it really just shows you the type of player that Hanley is, a player of Hendenberg's stature in the PLL right now, giving him as much love as he was. He said he's a hybrid or a mixture between Miles Jones and Paul Rabel, which is actually a pretty interesting comparison. Obviously, that's super high praises, but it also it's kind of on the money, honestly, just in terms of like melding of size, style, speed, power, whatever. But he said, you've got to slide earlier to Sam Hanley. He's in the range when he steps in the parking lot, which is very, very true. He can bring it from anywhere.
Yeah, there's no denying that. I think he deserves the praise. And my favorite part about his game, not to just go off on the Sam Hanley tangent, because we've done that before, but how aggressive he comes out of the box, no matter who's guarding him. He gets shot out of a cannon. And I'm thinking, like, imagine if you're that LSM, definitely under his size, and standing there at the box, you got to get up by the midline and just run with him.
Yeah,
that's how I would play him, because if you wait for him to either run you over or split you, it's too late. And then, you don't want a lot of teams don't want to slide to pulls, so their slide package is already a little skewed from him just coming out of the box like he got shot out of a cannon.
But you know what? I mean, if I'm a defensive coordinator, you have to slide to him no matter what. He's a green light to slide to every time. And I like what you said about meeting him at the midline or at the 45, because you might as well get beat early. You're gonna get beat. Like, why be flat-footed just inside the restraining box and get beat? Because his range is from right inside the restraining box.
It. Yeah, and he's snapping it right off the dodge. If you're there, at least if you're running with him, I think it would he wouldn't, as a downhill dodger, you would like the defenseman to be waiting inside the box. So after that dodge, you can shoot or pass. I think it's worse when you kind of call their bluff, meet them at the 50 and just run with them. It was a Colgate special against a lot of our Dodgers back at school, and make it slide early, make them move it behind, and kind of
set the edge, as we used to say.
So, if you can't beat them, join them. I think if you're scouting Penn, that's what I would do. Any coaches that tune into Snapping Towels, there's your free call for the weekend.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see, Penn moving forward, to survive another 1-goal overtime thriller. They're a little banged up. They're not as healthy as they'd like to be. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep this going. It seems like they've got 9 lives at some point. You think that this kind of luck would run out. But we definitely hope not on Snapping Towels. Another Ivy League team that was involved in a serious game was the Yale Bulldogs playing at St. Joe's. Another rainy game. It seemed like, the entire weekend was plagued by
I know.
brutal rainy weather. I think the only games that were unaffected would be Virginia and Brown. And I think that's it, honestly. Harvard Rutgers wasn't rainy, but the field was very, very wet. But every other one either had like really heavy rain or a weather delay. But this Yale St. Joe's game was just fireworks. It's really too bad for St. Joe's because I think they're a quarterfinal team. I mean, I had a hell of a time watching them. Their offensive personnel, I think, is as good as anybody's outside of Maryland and maybe Virginia on a good day. They can score on absolutely anybody. Really tough draw to draw the Yale Bulldogs in round one. I'm sure they're thinking, why wasn't there an Ivy League rematch? Why couldn't we go play someone else? But, an insane game. St. Joe's a lot of fun to watch. Athletes, size, speed everywhere.
Yeah, I think the turn, it's hard to say the turn because it ended up being 18-16. Yeah. But the turn was 6-9. St. Joe's was up, and one of their poles shot it from the box, the top of the box, and it was an easy save going the other way. Easy goal for Yale. So 3-on-2 fast break that they canned. That might have been the switch. Like they go up 4, it's a little tougher. There's just little plays like that you see throughout the game where it's a little like if St. Joe's kind of saved their bullets, it might have helped them in the long run and valued a little bit possession, even though their style is this up and down, high risk, high reward, a lot of style in those attackmen, which I really appreciate. They've been around the block. It was an old crew, and they showed up and gave a young, really talented Yale team a run for their money.
Yeah, these young guys at Yale have just grown so much as the year has gone on. I think we always knew Leo Johnson was going to be a good player, but yeah, drops 4-2 in his first NCAA tournament game. Chris Lyons is another freshman at 3-3. Leo Johnson, I think coming into the year, we knew he was going to be a starter. Kyle knew a little bit about his game being from Greenwich.
The town.
Right. I think we thought he was going to be a nice little finisher for them this year. Kid can carry the ball. He's got good vision. He can do a lot of different things. He's really, really impressed me as the year has gone along. And also Chris Lyons, I think, halfway through the year, I kind of pegged him as strictly a goal scorer on that right-handed side. He's got great vision. He can create for himself. Like these freshmen at Yale are very, very good.
Leo Johnson's got 62 points right now.
Yeah. So
that's no joke.
It's no joke at all.
And honestly, maybe the best freshman out of all of them who flies under the radar, Brad Sharp, number 13, who can just move like water. I think
Brad Sharp's damn good.
He's got this freshman group at Yale. The next 3 years is going to be a Final Four team if they can pull their
and Brandau's only a junior, so he's got next year. All these kids are going to be sophomores. I mean,
yeah,
the Yale Bulldogs and the Ivy League are in good hands for sure moving forward.
Yeah, Penn, Princeton returns. Anyways, we don't need to get down a rabbit hole of the Ivy League restocking and replacing, but
yeah,
let's not take any credit away from St. Joe's for showing up.
One thing that was really interesting about this game, St. Joe's had the number one faceoff guy in the country statistically. I can't think of his name right now. And he was kind of dominating in the first half. And Yale in the second half mixed it up. They spelled Ramsey a little bit with this backup faceoff guy, last name Ball. The kid had taken like 13 faceoffs all year, and he took 13 faceoffs in the second half.
It's called throwing in a wrench.
Yeah, and it worked. It was a great coaching move. It kind of changed the complexion of the game. I wish I remember the name of the St. Joe's faceoff kid, but it was really a massive turning point in the game when Yale started to win faceoffs, make it a scrum at the X.
Same Zach Cole.
Zach Cole. Yeah. Zach Cole has had an amazing year, and he dominated the first half, and St. Joe's went into the locker room up 9-6. And then they kind of mixed it up, threw a little change up at Zach Cole, and things looked a lot different for Yale. So give the Yale coaching staff a lot of credit there.
They threw in James Ball, who went 8 for 13, 62%. Zach Cole, dealing with both of them, went 59%. Probably most of those losses were in the second half.
Yeah, they
22 wins out of 37 draws. That's a hell of a day. You deserve full scholarship for that.
Yeah, James Ball, I'm sure St. Joe's didn't scout him in their face-off room, didn't know what his moves were, what his grip was, whatever. You can't do moto grip anymore, but whatever. There's film.
Get close to the mic for that.
There's film to be watched on face-off guys. There's scouting that goes into it. You don't just go out there and take draws. This kid Ball wasn't on the scouting report, and they throw him in the second half. Yale's got some rock solid backup face-off guy for Ramsey, and this little coaching move kind of changed the complexion of the game.
Of course, they have a grinder that could go in and just rip up face-offs.
Yeah. But yeah, fun game in the rain. Of course, another Ivy League advances.
On to the Ivy Leagues that did not advance. Or one Ivy League that did not advance that hosted.
No, there were two, but
no, I know. Just talking about one that hosted. I knew there were two.
Sure. The Brown Bears
from the Harvard debacle, but yeah, I was referring to the Brown Bears. A lot of promise, massive fans show out. It was insane to watch. It was a great atmosphere. I was excited. It was honestly there because I think the atmosphere might have been even better than it had been at Klockner.
Yeah, it definitely rivaled
what the atmosphere
would have been at Klockner. Yeah, no, I mean, it's Stevenson looked great. The whole thing looked awesome.
The back half where you can stand courtside and pack it in.
It was very legit.
Was your brother in attendance?
He was not. He was not there. He was watching on the tube. But I've been to Stevenson many times. It's a great stadium. They've made some little improvements over the years. Really great place for a night game, for a big game. Really cool atmosphere when it's packed. And this was like a fun, homecoming for Lars, which kind of made it that much more emotional, entertaining, whatever word you want to plug in there. The last time these two programs played was, I believe, I think Virginia. Yeah, it was at Stevenson in 2020 on March 8th. March 12th, 2020 is kind of everybody's kind of marker for COVID. March 8th, 2020, Brown and Virginia played. Brown won that game. So kind of another homecoming for Lars. Great game for a half, 2.5 quarters. Virginia.
Before we hop into the game, the reports of Lars getting the frat row to come down, boost up to practice and heckle the players
move
to simulate the Brown crowd. I didn't really get it because you're like, yeah, everyone like gets heckled. I mean, most games you go to, especially big rivalries, playoff games, there's going to be people like that. There's nothing new, but I think where he's coming from was the kids standing on the sidelines.
Exactly. The proximity of the fans.
They're right off the field. So
he's no stranger to Stevenson.
Exactly. And I heard that and I was like, I mean, I can't imagine being at that practice or what it's like. We'll have to have a who on to talk about it. But I guess it worked out.
Yeah, if we can get a who to respond to us.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, but it was a hell of an atmosphere. I can only imagine some of the things that were being said to those kids at practice by those fraternity brothers. I'm sure there were some off-color remarks made. I'm sure everything was fair game, including girlfriends and mothers. So I'm sure it was quite the scene at practice, but clearly it worked. They went into Stevenson, took care of business, were not phased. Seemed like
I wonder if anyone went too far with that. Yeah, you gotta go. Also, I wonder how many showed up. Like, there's a big report that this happened, and they're like, no follow-up, like no footage, no like UVA is always putting out practice footage and like pictures. Like, I was really looking for one of those. And I think we've gone on enough about this coaching stunt that
Would have been quite the scene.
But like, come on, we need some kind of insight on what
Some
what
injured
happened.
kid has to have like a great snapshot on his phone. But yeah, no, it clearly worked. UVA went in there, took care of business. As I said, felt like they were kind of honestly feeding off that environment.
Most definitely.
It was a good competitive back and forth game for 2.5 quarters, almost 3 full quarters. Virginia, with about 3 minutes left in the third quarter, turned on the Jets as they
Scored like 6 straight.
Yeah, as they tend to do. They just had more good players. Their good players were better than Brown's good players. Nobody could guard Schellenberger, Matt Moore, Peyton Cormier was on fire. It was, and Petey LaSala looked healthy. I think.
So he's getting drilled though. It's tough to watch.
That's true. I think one thing that's worth noting about this Virginia game, and also, we're not going to talk too much about the BU Princeton game, but the same applies to Princeton, is both of these two teams looked really, really fresh. And the reason why is because they didn't play in a conference tournament, and Virginia didn't even play the weekend before the conference tournament. They played that Thursday against Lafayette, which I'm sure they cleared the benches in that game. Sure, they're
first half.
Yeah, exactly. So they were very fresh, healthy, ready to go. They looked like they were chomping at the bit to get out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's rare to see in the Ivy League as good of a conference as it is, and it has been more dominant than the ACC. 3 ACC attackmen Brown really hasn't seen.
No,
even against UNC, they have won.
Yeah.
So you saw Brown's defense you saw them break down in this third to fourth quarter transition where, Moore scores, or Schellenberger's always in the action. He got the ball rolling early, but Moore scores, and then Cormier, they just kind of forgot about, and like all their attention went to Schellenberger and Moore, and Cormier just pops off for like 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's kind of that third defenseman that's the guy who's just trying to like take care of the guy who can't dodge. Oh wait, Peyton Cormier is an extremely good dodger and inside like can get lost anywhere. So that's where I thought the difference was, them being able to guard 3 attackmen. They showed also, unfortunate, Brown had a defensive injury in that third quarter that definitely shook things up. Sending a kid off the bench to go in at close defense, never a good thing against Virginia in a playoff game. But I thought Brown had a great season, and this game kind of showed them where they kind of fell. They
kind of came back down to earth. They had a great year
against Penn too. It was like their last 2 games. They kind of, they were like, oh, you're hosting the Ivy, you're the best team, the best conference. And then it's kind of like first round exit.
Yeah.
Drawing Virginia's tough, like crazy tough, especially the last 3 years they've had with the same roster. They're taking
pretty much the same roster, which is just insane.
It was a tough draw for Brown, but I think, the better team won, and they showed that in dominant fashion. But
I like that you said that though. It was a great season for Brown. That 3-game stretch they had, the wins against Penn, Cornell, and Yale, still is the most impressive 3-game stretch in the country. Connor Terriault, I've been saying Terrio all season. It's Terriault. The people's goalie, as they call him. I like Terrio better, but his name is Terriault. He was just absolutely white hot in those 3 games. He's a very good goaltender, but I think water has kind of found its level there. Like he's not a first team All-American goaltender. He's a good keeper.
The people's tender.
Exactly. He's a good keeper. He's kind of come back down to earth. The loss of Darian Cook, I think, really, really hurts them.
That makes them a little interesting to see how dangerous they got with him.
Right. It makes them a little less dynamic. And as Kyle mentioned, which is an excellent point, the Virginia draw is really, really tough. I mean, Virginia could win the national championship. It could happen. Probably not, but it could happen.
We'll see next round. It's going to be decided. So
exactly.
And but on the other side, Matt Nunes had a fantastic game.
Yeah, he had a tough
too.
He had a tough back half of the year, and he looked absolutely excellent. I want to mention Connor Schellenberger had 4 and 4. Of course, what else is new? Another day at the office for Connor Schellenberger. Matt Ward, ex-Virginia attackman, 2006 graduate, 3-year starter there, won 2 national championships in 03 and 06 as a freshman, as a senior, won the Tewaaraton as a senior. I was actually at his national championship game 2006. He has the NCAA tournament record with 30 goals in 11 games. I predict Connor Schellenberger will break that record. I don't know if it's not going to be this year, but in his career, he will have more than 30 goals in the NCAA tournament.
I mean, I think he's the best attackman that's been to Virginia.
Kyle keeps saying that, and I think there's an argument to be made. I think there ultimately will be an argument to be made. The kid is absolutely unbelievable.
Too fast. He's too good. He's too efficient shooting the ball. He's an insane passer. Like, sure, you could throw Steele Stanwick style in the mix, and if style's a component, then like there's no one crispier than Steele Stanwick. I think both of us are proprietor of that well.
Well said.
But it's not. And like Connor Schellenberger is a machine, and he's got Billy Bitter's speed, and he could stretch the shoot. He could stretch it. He could finish in tight. He's just, and since he's a freshman, like there's no learning curve here. Even though he
complete attack.
He was in that COVID year, so he started his sophomore year as a freshman, so he's just
technically a junior, but sure.
But you watch him, and you're like, this. No matter what grade he's in, he's the best player on the field.
He's a pro attackman.
So yeah, that game ended quick.
Yeah, after being tied at half, Virginia turned on the Jets and ended that game quickly. Another game that was tied at half was Ohio State at Cornell.
Yep, that one. A little fell out of hand a little bit. Probably just as dramatically as the Brown Virginia game in my eyes.
Kind of same cadence.
This is the same thing. A little bit different. Cornell kind of had a one-man show. Virginia was a little bit more spread out. Also, one guy we didn't mention for Virginia, I thought is coming into peak form at the perfect time of the season, is Jeff Connor.
Yep,
bringing that midfield stud. But anyways, on to Ohio State Cornell. And the star of the show is no stranger to being the star, CJ Kirst. I thought, his 7 or 8 goal performance was definitely not needed. I think they would have won anyway if he just had a regular game, but I think it was just kind of him cementing himself as one of the best up-and-comers in the league.
Yeah, he tied a Cornell school record. Steve Mock once had 7 goals in an NCAA tournament game. Steve Mock is a pretty overlooked player, honestly, kind of in the history and landscape of college lacrosse. Was one of the better American finishers I've seen at the college level. But CJ Kirst had an unbelievable game. Proved that he isn't just a shooter. Was doing some stuff off the dodge that I didn't exactly know he could do. Kyle mentioned it was a one-man show. It is worth mentioning John Piatelli had 4 and 1. But after that, the box score is pretty pedestrian for most. A guy that has impressed me all year long, but just did an unbelievable job and really showed, that he is truly a first-team All-American. Gavin Adler, number 77, defenseman for Cornell, had the assignment to guard second-team All-American Jack Myers for the Buckeyes. He had Jack Myers in a phone booth the entire game. It was unbelievable. Jack Myers ended up with 2 and 1. He buried one on a really nice take with about 30 seconds left when the game was well out of hand. But he was anywhere Jack Myers went, Gavin Adler was with him. And the Buckeyes are not an easy team to defend. They are relentless in the pick game. They set more picks than I think anybody in the country. So as a close defenseman, that can be a real nightmare. It can be really annoying and really tiring. A lot of getting through physical picks, switching on picks.
A
lot of talk. It takes a lot of mental toughness and frankly, just being in great shape, right? To be able to communicate in the third and fourth quarter when you're dog tired and make the right plays on those picks is no easy task. So Cornell holding Ohio State to 7 to 8 goals is the real deal, and Cornell's going to be dangerous in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, who is it on the call? Kark and Cotter, I believe they had a fantastic conversation going. It
was great.
Gavin Adler's jersey not having the same size sleeves that everyone else as all the
Yeah,
other
they're
jerseys.
definitely cut.
And they do look cut.
No, they're definitely cut. Yep.
We're gonna have to ask him about that. Have him on snapping towels, but an insane look, and kind of he gave up probably 5 or 6 inches to Jack Myers, but if you watch the game, you really wouldn't have noticed.
More than that. Jack Myers is 6'4", which kind of surprised me, but he's 6'4", and at
6'3".
least according to the roster.
So that's bumped up 2 inches, probably 6'2", 6'3".
Adler's 5'8".
Also bumped up a couple.
Yeah, Adler's 5'8", and he was.
No, he's a fire hydrant. I mean, it's all
strength he
it's
displayed.
leverage. Though.
Yeah, he had just had all the leverage.
He's
It
low.
was really
he's
impressive.
Fast. He's great with his stick. He gets in the hands when, obviously he needs to make up his skill set in other ways than just being big and being able to push guys out. So if you can't really push guys out, you got to be able to get in there with your stick and really cause a ruckus. And he does that better than anyone in the country.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of an old school Cornell defenseman. Like that's honestly what I picture when I picture the Cornell Poles back in the day playing for Tambroni, making those Final Four runs. That's what he looks like. I would want absolutely nothing to do with that guy. Worth noting, Ohio State went up 4-0 in this game. So they got outscored 15-4 after that. So they got absolutely waxed in this game.
There was a rain delay in the second quarter.
They went up 4. So they were up 4-2. They're up 4-0. Cornell scored, bang, bang, made it 4-2. Boom, lightning delay, which I thought was unfortunate for Cornell because they finally got something going, had a little bit of momentum, but they came out and it was just, it was all Cornell all day.
Yeah, those rain delays tend to bode well for the home team. You get your locker room, you get your snacks. They're like 30 so minutes. I remember one year at Loyola, we played at Virginia in a first round game under the lights, and
first game of the year, right?
No, this was in the postseason.
First round.
Yeah, first round. My senior year.
Didn't you guys always open up with them too? Or
correct. Yeah, we did. We lost to them early in the year. We played them again. It happened a couple of times. Lost to Duke in the middle of the year. They ended up coming to Loyola hosting. We hosted twice. Regardless, we were in this weather delay, completely comfortable, hanging out like you would before practice. Guys dicking around, getting snacks, chatting with coaches. What's the deal? Are we even going to play? The storm just kept rolling through. Lightning push. We'd go 15 minutes out of 30. Another lightning crack. Another 30 reset. So it's kind of that clock where if you're at home, you've got nothing to worry about. They call it. You need to play it again the next day. You go home to your spot. Sleep in your bed and you come back and do it all over again. But if you're on the road, you're in a hotel, you don't know what the deal is. You're in a away locker room that's got maybe a couple planks to sit on. I
know that away locker room at Cornell. It's not, it leaves a lot to be desired. I'll leave it at that.
And that's what happens. That's the luxury of hosting. I think that's like the biggest advantage to hosting other than the crowd. Like, I know I could throw a huge wrench in teams just sitting in an away locker room for 30 minutes, kind of thinking out. You also get up for the game. It's the whole anticipation. Then you're up 4, they climb back. Then you have to go sit down for 30 minutes. Yeah. Anyways, I've gone on about this rain delay for far too long, but
I was a part of a rain delay at Loyola 2014 during the Patriot League tournament.
It happened.
Yeah. No rain delays on the road are no good. Don't think we would have won that game anyway, but anyway, yeah, the Cornell looked great. One thing that was kind of frustrating, honestly, from a coaching perspective, I was kind of disappointed in Nick Myers. Got nothing but respect for what Nick Myers has done at Ohio State. This is obviously just one small thing, but they were down with 10 minutes left. They were down 5 goals, and Ohio State, I don't know if they were tired. I know Cornell had a lot of possessions. Ohio State packed into a zone and just kind of let Cornell kind of melt like the 10 to 4 minute mark. It just seemed like Cornell just kind of melted it away because Ohio State was sitting in a zone. Really didn't like that. And I also just don't like going in a zone against Cornell anyway. These kids are highly, highly skilled. These kids
Yeah, it almost
they're
prefers
built to
their
pick apart a
game.
zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Cornell moving forward, the one thing I worry about is their offensive midfield.
Yeah,
I think if they can show up, then they have a strong case to make a run at a Final Four. If the midfield doesn't have production, it's going to be hard for them to win this next one.
agreed. Because the likelihood of Cornell holding, well, I don't know,
Delaware.
holding Delaware to 8 goals. Look, that's gonna be a damn good. That's gonna be a gritty game. But the likelihood of Cornell holding another team in the
In
shot clock era.
Columbus. Why do they keep doing these quarterfinals in Columbus? I went to Columbus 3 times in school. We played Towson, a school 5 minutes away, in Columbus.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
It's a joke. The no fans show up unless they're the school like parents that make the trek out there, and some plus ones. But God, it's like
it's not necessarily that
even when Ohio State was in this quarterfinal game at Columbus, it wasn't selling out the shoe. Like it wasn't.
That's the problem, and that's what I wanted to say. It's not necessarily that nobody's showing up; it's that it looks like nobody's showing up because the stadium seats 108,000 people. I've been there when there are 108,000 people in it, and I've been there for a lacrosse game when there are 1,000. It is such a horrendous atmosphere. You can hear a pin drop. One thing I will say,
and the refs, don't get me started with the refs.
Kyle's been on a Columbus ref rant on Snapping Tiles before. he can spare us this time, but I will say the one thing, aside from the fact that there's no atmosphere in there, which is just too bad. And Ohio State has a new lacrosse stadium that will be ready to go next spring, which I think is going to be pretty similar. I think what Michigan has. I'm
wondering what this contract is where they're plugging these quarterfinal games.
It is odd.
Ridiculous.
It is seems a little too frequent.
Put it in Syracuse or something. Like
on the flip side, yeah, but you want it outside. It's May, you want it outside.
Durham. Put it in Durham.
Sure.
Or they host half the games during the year anyways.
On the flip side though, as a fan, it's actually not a bad place to watch a game because you get to be very close to the field. The space between the first row and the sideline is not much. So I will say, as a fan, it's actually a pretty good viewing experience, but there's just no atmosphere. On the flip side, the other quarterfinal is that I think probably the best quarterfinal spot in Hempstead at Hofstra.
Insane. It's going to be insane. It's going to be packed.
It's not going to be
Yale,
Lyle
Princeton.
Thompson, Notre Dame, but it's going to be.
It might. If it's a sunny day, I think it might. That was the last time. Actually, that's not true. I played in a quarterfinal at Hempstead, and it was pissing rain, and it was disgusting.
Ben Reeves led Yale team, right?
Still correct. Still packed. It was a still packed.
I think
crowd.
That's the best quarterfinal spot. I'm trying to. I know there are a
If
couple
it's a
really
sunny
good ones.
Day, the whole bowl will be packed. Lyle Thompson, Notre Dame. The other game that year was Maryland, Bryant.
Yeah.
Shout out Dunny.
Yep.
Gunner. They put on a good game, but Maryland was pretty good that year. And the Dane train had it. Not to go back in the memories too far, but the Dane train was going strong, and then back then they never had a face-off guy. It was tough.
They lacked athletes on D. They didn't have a face-off guy, and their midfielders frustrated me big time. But we'll leave that for another day. The Hofstra quarterfinal, we'll get to it later. But the teams that are playing there are relatively local. You got Penn from Philly,
local.
Princeton from Jersey, Rutgers from Jersey, Yale from Connecticut, mid-state Connecticut.
It's all within an hour.
Exactly. So it'll probably be pretty ruckus. Virginia and Maryland travel very, very well. So it would have been kind of fun.
Not for nothing, but if Cam's not doing anything on Saturday, maybe he rips out to Hempstead for the quarters.
Yeah, I might have to rent a car. Actually, I can easily just hop on the LIRR and get there. But it's too bad. I think that Maryland or Virginia is not playing there because they travel so well. But anyway, honestly, Cornell absolutely waxed Ohio State.
Screw them. Make them go to Columbus. I don't care.
Make them go to the flyover.
They're always
state, right?
playing in that. Yeah. God, Maybe it'll look a little crowded. That would be a true test. UVA versus Maryland in the quarterfinals in Columbus. We'll see how many people show up.
Again, though, it's not about the number of people. It's about the the thing that they're sitting in is
No,
so
no,
large.
100%. But I'll be fair. I know it's not going to be 108,000 people unless the football team decides to do a strip show at halftime. But you can't tell me that, like, if they're like, oh, there are 15,000 people in attendance, I'll be like, oh, all right, that yeah, they showed up, but
Yeah,
it's gonna be like 8, maybe.
maybe.
Well, with
Anyway,
Cornell and Delaware too, you'd imagine people would go all the way to Columbus, might want to watch two ball games.
I don't know. I don't picture. I don't know. Cornell Delaware is kind of an odd matchup. I mean, it's fun for us and for lacrosse fans, but it just sounds weird. Anyway, Cornell whacks Ohio State. Also, Rutgers absolutely waxed Harvard. Harvard didn't belong. I was wrong.
We
Where
thought
Cam
we
was
gave them the
wrong.
benefit of doubt.
I picked
They've
Harvard.
they've showed up. They've showed up some games. I thought it would be an interesting matchup.
It wasn't.
Uh, no, it wasn't. And Harvard has a lot of young, very talented players. I think they will be back here with not this wide-eyed.
Yeah, it's probably going to end up being a good thing for them, but it just gives the ACC
They are handed a
fanboys a lot of
gift from
ammunition.
God that they were in this tournament.
Yes and no. I mean, I think they earned it on paper, but
they were 6th in their league. Like,
I know.
Ross Scott had 8 goals. Yeah. Anyways,
Rutgers is loaded. It's going to be interesting to see Rutgers next week. I mean, honestly, it's going to be an interesting matchup for Penn. You got former Penn Quaker Mitchell Bartolo for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights.
yeah.
That'll be kind of an interesting storyline. That's a matchup with a lot of big athletes. So that'll be interesting.
Before we get into the games, let's hit. Who'd you have for your top performer from last weekend?
I had Gavin Adler. I mean, the job he did on Jack Myers was absolutely absurd. Also, I'm going to throw in number 81 for Delaware. His name is Owen Grant. He was absolutely everywhere. And after Kyle gives his top performer, we're going to talk a little Blue Hens Hoyas.
Love it. Yeah, mine was pretty simple. I had Matt Kilcarry. He kept Delaware in it the whole game. I think Georgetown has an insane offense to keep them to low numbers, and it was. I'm not saying it was all him. The Blue Hens defense played a great game, but when he needed to be in front of the ball, he was. And I just thought if he didn't play the game he had, they would have lost by 5.
You're not wrong. He had 14 saves, and very few of them were 6-side high. I mean, he was going low, just snaring some really nice high to low shots. And it just felt like the whole time Georgetown was kind of like one play away, one kind of goal away from maybe running away with it.
It took Delaware to have like the best plays they've had all year in the last 2 minutes of the game consecutively to win. Where it's like,
it was absurd.
If you're like, oh shit, like they got that one, but like the chances of them doing it again are like none, and boom, they did something crazy. And it was just one of those momentum shifts that you can't really explain. That I thought it took for Delaware to stump the number 2 team and national championship expectants Georgetown to beat them.
Yeah. This was the best collective defensive performance I think I've seen all year from both teams. I think that I really do think the Cornell defensive performance on Saturday was incredibly impressive and up there with the best this year. But in terms of a full game played by both teams, unbelievable defensive performance. Both goalies, Owen McElroy for Georgetown's had everybody knows he's excellent. He's a top tier goaltender in Division I. But for Matt Kilcarry to kind of stand on his head and just keep the Blue Hens, he just kept the Blue Hens alive. It was crazy. I really felt like Georgetown was one goal, one play, one possession away from kind of busting it open.
Yeah,
and he just kept making these saves. It was unbelievable.
I think Georgetown had a ESPN top 10 play in their playing game. And I think they,
Delaware,
or who did I say?
Georgetown.
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah, Delaware did have a top ESPN top 10 play in their playing game. I think they had 3 in this Georgetown game that weren't on ESPN just because maybe one was, but
I don't watch much Sports Center these days, but I have to imagine Mike Robinson's behind the back in the Georgetown game.
if it wasn't, it's a robbery.
Highway robbery.
But they could have 3 of them. It was crazy what was going down on that field. It was
it was an electric fourth quarter.
Delaware
went like 20
versus the Soviet situation.
Yeah, totally.
They played 10 times. I think Georgetown wins 9.
I agree. Delaware went 23 minutes in this game without a goal. So like it was a stalemate for a while, and then the fourth quarter kind of blew open. And that behind the back from Mike Robinson,
Bones.
That might be the honest. I don't want to be too hyperbolic here, but just in game at that speed situation, that might be the best behind. That's the goal of the year. That's the goal of the year.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to be saying the goal of the year is Dordevics through the legs, which was crazy in a crazy game as well. I'm not taking anything away from him, but playoff ball is different than a 3-9 season where you're just kind of saying, So,
yeah. And, great play by Dordevic, but, he's kind of butt naked on the crease on a fast break. His hands are totally free. And,
he can do whatever.
He makes a sick play and puts it between his legs. I'm not belittling it. I think a lot of us have probably done similar things in our backyard, and I don't know, given the opportunity, might be able to pull that. Some of our listeners would probably say, "Cam, shut up." But for Mike Robinson to sting that behind the back at full speed to tie it up with under 2 minutes left against the number 2 seed on the road after winning a play-in game 3 days earlier, putting in a similar goal. To ultimately win this game, that's the goal of the year. Snapping towels, goal of the year.
Yeah, that Delaware game was definitely the best of the first round. Kind of that saved the best for last performance that we were waiting for, the upset that no one knew was going to happen.
Except
for Cam, who called it week 1 that Delaware was going far this year.
To be fair, I did not think they were going to beat Georgetown, and I did not predict it on air, but I did say in January that Delaware was a dark horse quarterfinal / first round upset team. I did say that, but
he's going with it.
But I jumped off that bandwagon when they lost by 10 to Michigan, so I can't take too much credit.
You're a true fan.
Go Hens.
So let's fire right into the discussion.
Well, speaking of the Hens,
are you on the wagon or are you off? Because you've been on both of these teams' wagons this year. Delaware, Cornell. In Ohio.
In Columbus, Ohio. Again, it just sounds odd to say Delaware, Cornell in the shoe. Funny because Cornell stole this from Ohio State. Ohio State obviously, was lining up to play in the quarterfinal in the shoe.
I mean, forget about it. The refs, it couldn't be more of a favoritism situation in that. So I'm so glad I don't see Ohio State Delaware quarterfinal game in this shoe.
Personally,
I
personally couldn't be happier that we're not seeing that. So I'll be totally honest about that.
It would have shooed in this Maryland Virginia game to a national championship.
Yeah. So this Delaware Cornell game is going to be really interesting. It's going to be a gritty game, 2 gritty programs. A little storyline here. Ben DeLuca, the former head coach of the Cornell Big Red, was dismissed a couple of years ago due to some off-field issues the team had. A hazing event happened.
Bullshit.
A hazing event happened, and Ben DeLuca took the brunt and was dismissed from the program. Has found a home at Delaware and done a hell of a job with the Blue Hens.
He went to Duke.
Correct. He went to be an assistant at Duke. Took the job at Delaware. Thank you. This Delaware team's dangerous, man. I do think, what's funny is I was going to say, they haven't seen the likes of Gavin Adler, but I also think Gavin Adler. Will Bowen for Georgetown is the only poll in the country, in my opinion, that's better than Gavin Adler, and it's not by a long shot. So Delaware has seen big-time polls. These kids can score on anybody. I said it last week. I thought the Georgetown-Delaware game was going to be much higher scoring because I said, look, Delaware can score on anybody.
Scored on Duke. Scored on Georgetown.
I think this is a high-scoring game. I think it's a 14-12 victory for the Cornell Big Red.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a great game. Really gritty. Two gritty programs.
Very gritty. I'm going to ride the Blue Hen train. I think it's kind of that old coach knows what they're trying to do situation. We were actually talking about this Ben DeLuca situation during the game. You had mentioned that Connor Busick's a big fan of Ben DeLuca as he coached him at Cornell.
Correct. And I worked with him for at least a
Hired
fall.
him, yeah.
Connor Busick publicly backed Ben DeLuca when this happened.
What, this guy was at this party making these kids drink or whatever it was. It's kind
of he was like,
absurd
well, this is ridiculous
situation, and it's a complete scapegoat for the program to just use the guy in charge for these mistakes that kids make on the lacrosse field. Granted, you could say it's a culture thing. You could blame the coach for those reasons, but at the end of the day, he can't go out on Friday night and make the decision for the player. And I think Busick's an A1 guy, and it's to no surprise that he made those comments about Coach DeLuca. I think the old sensei takes care of his young protege, and the Blue Hens remain on this hot streak. And in Columbus, anything can happen. I'm saying it's a bad day for Erland, and the Hens take it. Bang, bang.
Would be Delaware's first time in the Final Four since 2007 when they lost to Paul Rabel as a junior and his Hopkins squad that ultimately won the national championship. That Delaware Blue Hens team was led by Curtis Dixon and Alex Smith at the Faceoff X. That was a hell of a squad. Yeah, that'd be fun. I mean, I wouldn't hate it. I'm choosing Cornell, but no, I wouldn't hate a little Blue Hen blood in the Final Four.
Why not? I love the underdogs and the programs that kind of come out of nowhere, not necessarily the blue bloods.
Another thing I will say, that might be the first, if they win, I think that's the first play-in team to make it to the Final Four.
Another great storyline we have here on Snapping Towels. Credit our statistician, Cam Williams. To our other Columbus game, which is going to be riveting in the shoe, UVA Maryland.
It is going to be riveting. Such a classic matchup. Every time I see this, I want to say, wow, what a classic ACC matchup. Obviously, it's not anymore.
Weird.
But for Maryland to do to Virginia what they did on March 19th in Washington, D.C. at that neutral site. I don't remember the name, Audi Field. 23-12. The game was never close. I think Maryland was up by, they won by 11. I think they were up by 14 or 15 at one point.
They had pole goals. They were doing it all. It was
absolutely just murked the Cavaliers.
That's the worst I've seen Virginia play in 4 years.
That's not going to happen again.
Yeah. No,
you heard it here first. That is not going to happen again. It's going to be an electric game.
Yeah.
It's maybe the two best coaches in the country. Maybe the two best rosters in the country.
Record-wise, the last 4 years.
Yeah, these are the two premier programs in the country. So it's unfortunate this is a quarterfinal matchup. We have what we have. The ACC shook out the way it did. Kyle picked the upset, Delaware over Cornell. I'm going Virginia over Maryland. Maryland, this historic run that Maryland's going on ends this Sunday in Columbus.
Wow.
Lars Tiffany, the Terrapin Killer. That's what he is. He is the Terrapin Killer. He's going to end their historic run.
Oh, I like that. I'm a Who's fan. I want Virginia to win, but I gotta go with my guy here. I'm gonna say Maryland continues on this run. The goalkeeping's too good. The offensive efficiency. They made a solid Vermont team look like they didn't belong anywhere
Light
near.
work.
One alumni quoted in the southern Los Angeles area, Southern California area, was quoted, "How about that practice for Maryland this morning?"
Little walkthrough.
It was some disrespect like that. No surprise there from the alumni of Maryland. Very proud, faithful unit they are. Yeah, I think Maryland takes this one and then rolls over their semifinal matchup as well, right to the finals.
You think they're gonna roll?
I think they're
roll?
They're gonna roll Cornell or Delaware if they get past UVA. I think UVA is the tightest game they have in this tournament till the championship. If they see, you know, it's gonna be an Ivy League unless Rutgers pulls off some Houdini act. But they could, and hopefully it's not Rutgers because we saw what happened in the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, we've seen that movie twice already.
Princeton, Yale. I say Princeton takes it. I think you're right. They looked really, really fresh in their win. I also think their offense is a step above Yale's right now. I think in depth from the midfield.
I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a very high scoring game. Yale can't play defense. That's been made very apparent for about 8 straight weeks.
Neither can Princeton.
We said that about Princeton, but I will say their defensive performance against BU and the Long Island Express was pretty impressive, holding BU to 7 goals. Look, I don't think BU is an elite team. I don't think the Patriot League was an elite league this year. Do I think if Army or Loyola had traveled to Princeton, New Jersey for that game, I think it could have looked a little bit different? Sure. But I will say the defensive performance that Princeton put on against BU was pretty impressive. As you mentioned, they looked fresh, they looked healthy. So I think their defense is operating at a higher level right now than Yale's. I think the offenses are a wash. I think both have very high-powered offenses. I love both of their personnel on offense. I think Princeton wins this game too. I think Princeton's going to the Final Four for the first time since 2004. It's the first time since Ryan Boyle led into the Final Four as a senior.
It's going to be a tight game. I think Yale has the goalie edge. Yale's goalie's definitely better.
Eric Peters is no slouch though.
Eric Peters has had his moments, but he consistently lets up 20 goals around. That's tough. So, yeah, I think the people in the tri-state area are going to be there. Everyone goes to Hempstead for every single youth lacrosse tournament in that area every weekend of the summer. I think it's going to be jumping. I hope it's sunny because if it is, it's going to be loud and wild.
All right. Last but not least, Rutgers Penn. Kyle, what do you got?
I got our guy Sam Hanley and the Penn Quakers taking this one to the cooker. I think Rutgers is great. Ross Scott is hot, as I mentioned before. And I think Colin Kurse is the most untalked about, most significant player the Scarlet Knights have. Every time in tournament time, he is a first-team All-American goalie. So if he's hot and Ross Scott continues on his wave, you never know what can happen. But I'm taking the hot hand in Sam Hanley and the Penn Quakers.
I like that call on Colin Kurse. He is an excellent goalkeeper. We talk a lot of tenders on snapping towels. I don't think we've given Colin Kurse enough love. Great ball stopper, number one. But number two, I don't think there's any goalie in the country that creates offense quite like Colin Kurse does. Just the speed from save to outlet. Rutgers is always going from defense to offense as well as anybody in the country. And that starts in the cage with Colin Kurse. The kid's an absolute stud. Really like this Rutgers team. They have 27 seniors or grad students, 15 transfers, loaded on offense, athletes on defense, Colin Kurse in the cage. I like their coach. I like their momentum. but I'm all Sam Hanley and the Penn Quakers here. Kyle and I disagreed on both Columbus games. We're in agreement, both Hempstead games. The Penn Quakers, this is their year to be in the Final Four. They've earned it. The schedule they've put together over the last 3 or 4 years, these kids are battle tested. They are ready for this game. They can win in a 5-goal game. They can win in a 1-goal game, an overtime game, a defensive rock fight, a shootout. They've proven they can win in all fashions. They've played against the best. They have the best player in the country, in my opinion, and I think our opinion, in Sam Hanley, and just great compliments around him. And another guy that I'm a little salty about in terms of where he landed on the All-American teams, BJ Farrar was an honorable mention All-American. Look, no disrespect to being an honorable mention All-American. If you're an All-American, that's awesome. And much respect. Being an honorable mention All-American is a big deal. BJ Farrar is not an honorable mention All-American. Every time I watch the Penn Quakers play, I think he's the second best player on the field, pretty much no matter who they play, with the exception of maybe their Duke game, maybe Georgetown. I don't know. He's up there. He's everywhere. I love the way he plays. I think he's going to be the X factor in this game, the X factor in this weekend. He's going to be the guy that gets them over the top to go to their first Final Four since, I believe, 1992.
I love it. Out of the quarterfinal matchups, which is your game to watch, even though they're all game to watch, it's hard to put your finger on one.
I'm not going to go chalk here. It might be chalk. It might be chalk for me just because everybody expects me to go with an Ivy League game, but I'm not going to go chalk. I'm not going to say Maryland, Virginia. I do think it's going to be a great game, but I really think this Penn Rutgers game is going to be an excellent game. You've got two teams with great athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of great athletes, Rutgers Mitchell Bartolo is one of Rutgers' 15 grad students. He came from Penn. He was an excellent player at Penn. I think that's a fun little storyline.
Definitely.
I think Penn Rutgers is going to be an excellent game. That's my game to watch.
I'm going Princeton, Yale. I'm going both the Island games. I don't think the Cornell, Delaware, or the Maryland, Virginia game. Maryland, Virginia game could be fireworks, but it could also be a shit show. I'm going Princeton, Yale. I think it's going to be a 22-20 game. Madness, scoring 40 goals.
You could be totally right.
Might be a tournament record.
It could be a 40-goal game.
It's going to be up there. I think Princeton, Yale bring it. I think they both have amazing offenses and lack on defense. I think Yale's goalie and defense is a little bit better. I called Princeton winning the game, but I think that's going to be my matchup.
Okay, I like it. Well, you heard it here on Snapping Towels. We have a hell of a quarterfinal weekend ahead of us in Columbus, Ohio, and Hempstead, New York. Cannot wait to watch it. And we have a little surprise for you next week that we'll talk about. Just some plans for Snapping Towels. But
our first pro ball players coming on.
That's true.
Leave
that's
your
another
comments below.
That's another surprise. But there's one other one, and we'll discuss that next week. But first, we're going to watch these fireworks unfold in the quarterfinals. Can't wait to see it. You know, it couldn't have turned out any better for Snapping Towels, right? You get Maryland and Virginia, which, you know, everybody wants to see those two teams in the quarters. I'm not sure everybody wants to see them play each other, but you have Maryland and Virginia. You have your Blue Bloods. You have my Delaware Blue Hens.
I would have loved a Princeton, Maryland, UVA, Yale matchup.
It would have been interesting. Princeton and Maryland already played this year. Princeton actually sneaky gave Maryland a decent
game.
It's like
a 2-goal game.
No, I think it was 15-11. I think it was the final. But it wasn't 20-10. You know, like they kind of sneaky gave him a good game. But yeah, you got Maryland, Virginia. You got your Blue Blood star power. You have my Delaware Blue Hens. You have
who do we got on Saturday? Yale,
Rutgers,
Princeton. We got the
Rutgers
Long Island on Saturday. Columbus on Sunday.
At noon, and Yale Princeton at 2:30. And then Sunday you got Delaware, Cornell, and Maryland, Virginia. The other quarterfinal teams are Ivy League teams, and then another team which you know,
The wild card.
Rutgers, which was a sleeper Final Four pick for me in week 8. Just saying.
I love that call and I love that memory on you. But I was saying the wild card's Delaware. The Blue Hens, they're old, they're skilled,
definitely the wild
they're
card.
hot, their goalie's hot. I wouldn't want to see Delaware. Great coaching
A hot
staff.
goalie and some crafty Canadians. That's a recipe for an upset.
You heard it here first. Snapping Towels, episode 16.
Thanks for listening, everybody.